Welcome back, you're on Black Belt Secrets. As promised, some of my personal thoughts on this Prince Harry case. So, a little bit less of the law, not entirely devoid of law, but more my personal thoughts on this subject. And as I said, we're on Black Belt Secrets, so please do subscribe here for more of my personal thoughts on this topic and many other topics that you might be interested in. I know some people love Prince Harry and some people hate Prince Harry, and I'm not about the love or the hate on this thing. My personal thoughts about this are that regardless of whether he's right or wrong, regardless of whether this is a well-founded claim or whether he's just imagining things, he must obviously believe wholeheartedly that this is real, and he's going through it, whether it's a founded claim or not. And as I've said many times in other videos, lots of people say that they want their day in court. They want their case to be heard. They want to be heard. They want to come up and give evidence. And I think until people actually get into the witness box, they probably do feel like that. And there was one or two things that came out of the news reporting of this that made me feel like Harry may well not regret the entire claim, but regret the experience of going into the witness box, because it's certainly not going to have been a pleasant experience. It's not a pleasant experience for anybody. Whether you're a witness to a crime or you're in a breach of contract claim yourself or any other kind of claim that you've got to go into court for as a witness, either for yourself or for somebody else, it's going to be difficult. And one or two things, as I said, came out of the reporting when he was asked how he felt about it, and he sort of choked up and said that it was a lot, and it will be a lot for him to have gone through. As I said, whether you love him, you hate him, whether it's a well-founded claim or whether it's just he's suspicious, he's maybe paranoid, or any other things that have built up over the years. Because one thing that is inescapably true is that he has been the subject of paparazzi and news coverage for most of his life. And I firmly believe that he will be haunted by memories of what the paparazzi and news coverage did to his mum. And doubtless, I think that's followed him around all of his life. And this is a very strong part of the root of his vendetta to change the landscape for the British media. And again, whether that is well-founded or whether it's just born out of paranoia, we don't yet know. And perhaps in some sense we'll never know, but what we will get is a judgment. The judgment, if it's in his favour, it doesn't necessarily mean categorically this happened. It just means that the judge found on the balance of probabilities it's more likely than not that this took place. Conversely, if the judge says, no, your claim is not proven on the balance of probabilities, equally that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Because, again, there's no hard proof that it did or didn't happen either way, and unless someone was actually filmed in the act and there is hard evidence that this happened. That is why the case has been put in such a way, almost an anecdotal way, as we discussed on our art and media channel with myself and Alan Robertshaw, and on my main channel, Black Belt Barrister, both of which linked in the description below. Go and check them out. We've discussed that at length. It's almost anecdotal in that these stories are being pulled up, and this is all the information, this is what happened, this was the story, this is how it was published, and this was how it was printed. And they couldn't have known that information without access to a person, a thing, or some other kind of unlawful information gathering. That is what the claim is, that they couldn't have known these things without that access to information. The counter by the news group is one of a number of things. Either, yes, we did certain things wrong, but not that, or the information was already in the public domain because someone else had reported on it, or this information came from the palace itself, and that's where the information came from, and so it's not unlawful. And so that's why it ended up in print. Now, again, my personal thoughts are that however you look at this, it must be difficult for him, because the news group is a corporation. As we've said in many times in other feelings, corporations don't have feelings as such, but Harry certainly will, is human, and anyone going through that, whether it's real or imagined or paranoia or delusionary, any of those kind of things. I'm not saying he is, I'm saying anyone that is any of those things and come to court to try to prove what they firmly believe is true will have a tough time of doing that. Any claim to bring is tough, any claim to defend is tough. We've been there personally. We've been through litigation ourselves. We've been through cases ourselves. I've seen countless clients go through exactly the same thing. I've seen it in the family courts, in the civil courts, and not very often, but in my career, I've seen it in the criminal courts, as in myself representing. And I've seen some horrific things. Very young people, male and female, going through very tough times, very difficult times, some of them being threatened, some of them being told, you must do this or we will attack your family and things like that. So some fairly horrendous things. And arguments between perhaps a couple that once loved each other and obviously now are completely at odds and arguing and fighting either with each other or over the children or both, and even physically fighting in some occasions, and on some occasions very much worse than just fighting, which perhaps an entire subject for another video, which I'm not going to go into now. So my personal thoughts are that, again, whether you love him or you hate him, whether it's real or it's just in his mind, it's going to be difficult. So whilst we do go through and we dissect the legal understanding and the application, the anecdotal evidence, the way that the court process unfolds, just bear that in mind. And again, you can still dislike him and still have compassion, and you can still like him and disbelieve him at the same time. So these are not mutually exclusive thought processes. They're not mutually exclusive emotions. I would say keep an open mind. As a lawyer, we always keep an open mind. We always keep an inquiring mind. If somebody tells us something, even if it's our own client, they say, this is what happened. We will say, why do you think that happened? What made you think that happened? What evidence do you have that happened? Where did you find out? Who told them? How did they know? And where did that come from? We'll always ask. We'll never just take it on face value. It's not our job to believe you or disbelieve you. So some of the questions have been about Harry's lawyers. Do they believe him? Well, it doesn't matter, frankly. It doesn't matter whether they believe him or not. That's not their job. Their job is not to believe. Our job as lawyers is not to believe you. Sometimes I might have the conversation with the client and say, it's not my job to believe you or not. What you're saying makes sense to me. But my job is not to believe you or disbelieve you. My job is to represent your case with any evidence, with any legal arguments, however good or weak they might be, and put those arguments forward. We can't put forward entirely ridiculous arguments, and we can't put forward, allegations of complete fraud without any kind of basis at all. There has to be some basis there. The basis to Harry's claims here are that there are so many stories with so much information, which is so personal, that he says could not possibly have ended up in those stories without someone having, or a great many someones having access to that information. And his biggest problem in this whole case is that at the moment, a journalist does not have to say where the information came from. It's not contempt of court to refuse to give up their source. They will never do that. And does that, genuine question, does that make for a corrupt system? It's a question that is put out. Any system can be corrupt. You could get anyone in any profession who bends the rules. We know that many lawyers, solicitors and barristers alike, do get struck off from the solicitor's role or disbarred if they've done something that's so far against the rules that it brings the profession into disrepute. And so anyone of any profession can be guilty of that. And it does raise that question. Are some of them acting in that way? And will the court find, on the balance of probabilities, that that's likely to have happened here? We will find out in the coming weeks. It may take several weeks after the trial itself, which I think is to last a couple of weeks, but we may find out. It may take a couple of weeks after that before we find out. But I'll be looking forward to seeing the judgment on this one. This will be a very interesting one for many reasons, because it will, as we've said, it will have repercussions across the industry and perhaps even change legislation, because at the moment there is the potential for this to happen and have protection, legislative and statutory protection, from giving up the source of the information. So there it is. Those are my thoughts for this evening. It is 9:20. I'm at the back of a very long day. And I thank you all for your interest in all of our channels that have grown in the last few days. I sincerely thank you for that. Please do make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, the bell icon, so you get notifications of new videos. That helps my channel grow, reach a wider audience, and I'm very grateful for that. So in the meantime, have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and thank you for watching.